Okay, come on now. They're going to be here any minute now.
Okay, but I don't see why we have to do wind power. It sounds so boring. Couldn't we do something more interesting?
Like what, Squirt?
Oh, I don't know, but rockets?
Wind energy is plenty exciting, with lots of potential for clean, reliable, local, renewable energy. And people visiting our little corner of the fair are here to learn more about it.
Oh, all right. We'll do the wind thingy.
Besides, I really don't trust you with rockets.
What? I can't believe you would.
Oh, we're on. Hello there, fairgoers, and welcome to the Wind Center. My name is Adam, and this is my pal Squirt. And we were just discussing what we were going to talk to you about. And as you may have guessed, that happens to be wind energy.
I wanted to do rockets.
Enough about the rockets. Anyhow, people have been tapping into the power of the wind for thousands of years.
Really?
Really. Wind has driven exploration, commerce, and travel since the first humans hoisted sails about 5000 BC.
I just bet that sailing wasn't the only way people used wind power in the past. Don't windmills use wind? Going round and round and round.
That's exactly right, Squirt. Windmills were used by farmers to grind or mill their grain. That's where the name windmill comes from. And another type of windmill was used to draw up water from below the surface of the earth, usually in areas where surface water wasn't readily available. Squirt, that's how the prairie was settled.
That's all very fascinating, but I thought we were going to talk about the wind making electricity.
I was just about to get to that.
Now I've reminded you.
In the early 20th century, scientists and engineers combined rotary generators with the potential energy of the wind and created the first wind-powered electric turbines. Today, thousands of modern wind turbines across the country generate lots of electricity for you and me.
Oh yeah, smart guy? How much?
Well, nationwide wind power accounts for about 2.9% of all electricity. But here in Minnesota, it accounts for 12% of the electricity that you and I use.
That's a lot of power.
It sure is.
And to think it's just sitting there in the wind. How do I get some?
What?
There's got to be a way to be part of the wind power movement.
There certainly is. Today, individuals can operate small wind turbines on their own land for their farms, homes, or even small businesses.
Wow.
People use it to supplement their normal electrical supply, or they go off the grid and they don't use any electricity except what they generate on their own. And some even sell the extra power back to the company.
I have so many questions.
Lots of people do. Our friends over at Windustry get tons of questions like that all the time.
Well, are we going to help answer them?
You betcha.
Then what are we waiting for?
Well, I was waiting for you.
Well, I'm here. Let's go. Jump, jump. Come on.
Whoa, settle down. We'll start with one of the most common questions. Is a small wind system right for me?
Well, is it?
Just like making other big investments, the decision to buy a small wind system depends on your answers to a number of questions.
Like what?
Do you have land? More than 2 acres? Does your town or county allow tall structures? 100 feet or higher? Do you have wind? But most importantly is, why do you want wind and what investment are you willing to make? Wind systems aren't cheap, but if you want to gain energy independence, help the environment, or if you have some other motivation, wind could be right for you.
That's great, but why don't we see more turbines in the city?
Well, that's another good question, and one that is very common. For that answer, we'll hear from a small wind expert, Mick Sagrillo.
Urban turbines are plagued by two things. First of all, lots of turbulence. That turns out to be an awful lot of maintenance, because there's a lot of wear and tear on the machine. But even more important than that is the fact that there is very little airflow in cities. Even Chicago, Chicago's the windy city. Well, Chicago is really the gusty city. All of the buildings create obstacles that the air has to move around and flow around. And again, think of yourself in an aircraft. There's not a lot of good energy that you can extract out of that airflow, regardless of the technology.
That's too bad. But my uncle lives up in Hugo. Could he put one up on his house?
I think Mick has something to say about that. Let's find out.
In the case of wind over your home, over your house, you get a lot of turbulence, you get a lot of tumbling of the air. Wind turbines don't like that. They like laminar airflow. They don't like turbulent winds. Regardless of the technology, this is a fuel issue. If you've got a compromised fuel, if you've got very poor fuel, it doesn't matter what technology you use, you still can't extract the energy out of it, and you're not going to get the miles per gallon you want, so to speak.
So, it isn't a good idea to put a turbine in an area with lots of turbulence, like a city or the top of a house? I guess the best place would be in a more rural area, huh?
That's right.
But let's say that I do live in a rural area. How do I know that there's enough wind for a turbine?
Well, wind varies from area to area based on a lot of things, such as terrain and obstacles, to name a few. To get an idea of how much wind you might have in your area, you can look at a resource known as a wind map.
What's a wind map?
It's a map that shows you how much wind an area has. There's one located right here in the wind center.
That's pretty neat, but too big for me to take home. Is there anywhere I can look at this information?
Of course, you can find out more information about your land on the Minnesota Division of Energy Resources website. And the website appears right here. And near the wind map.
You said that some people sell electricity back to the power company. Do you know how that works?
I do, but the real expert is Mr. Tommy Turbine, and he can explain it way better than I can. So let's find out.
When the owner of an eligible wind turbine less than 40 kilowatts sells energy back to the power company, that's called net metering. Basically, how it works is anytime a turbine produces more energy than can be used, the extra gets put back on the grid. Then, the utility company will credit the small wind turbine's owner for the amount of energy put back on the grid in this manner. That's net metering.
That's pretty neat.
And it can be an effective way to offset the cost of electricity when the wind isn't blowing, or provide a new revenue stream if you build the project well. In fact, there's an interactive model of how it works here in the Wind Center.
I will have to check that out. But how big of a turbine will I need?
Well, Squirt, that's a tough question. In fact, I'm going to let Mick answer this one.
Let me turn the question around and ask you, how big of a vehicle do you need to own? Well, that depends, doesn't it? And it depends on, are you using it as a commuter vehicle just to get to work? Well, maybe you can use a smart car. You got a passel of kids that you got to haul off to the soccer game every day? Maybe now you need a van. Are you driving around livestock? Oh boy, now it's getting bigger. What about, do you move people's furniture? Do you move whole houses? Now you need a 60-foot semi. So it really depends upon what you're using it for, or how much you're consuming, so to speak. If you're a very, very energy efficient home, and you're in a good wind resource, by good wind resource I'm talking about a 10 to 12 mile an hour average wind speed, average annual wind speed, you're probably going to spend, and you're a very, very energy conscious home, you're probably going to spend about $30,000 for the turbine, the tower, and the installation.
Looks like I'm going back to the wind map after we're done here, then going home and figuring out how much energy I consume.
That sounds like an excellent place to start.
Okay, let's pretend for a minute that I have a good wind resource, enough room for a tower, and I know how much energy I need. What other decisions do I need to make about getting a turbine?
It's important to do your research before choosing a turbine.
Is that really that important? Won't any old one do?
It is very important, and Tommy Turbine is going to explain why.
There are many sizes and types of small wind turbines, and it's important the one you choose has a good reputation. You want one that's been tested and proven reliable, long-lasting. Think of it like buying a car and looking at the reviews from others, making sure that it won't break down all the time, or just plain won't work.
Where do I find that information?
The Windustry website has lots of resources for you. You can find them at www.windustry.org.
That wind power is fantastic stuff, but we're almost out of time. Where can our friends go to get more information about small wind?
Well, they can go to the Windustry website. They can also visit the Renewable Energy Project Builder located in the Wind Center and online. And they can always talk to one of the Windustry volunteers or staff here at the fair.
Wow, I can't wait to see if wind power is right for me. It's a great, clean, and green way to produce electricity.
And it can help you gain energy independence. It can reduce your carbon footprint, and it can even turn into a source of income. We've covered some basic questions about small wind energy, but if you have any more, please check with someone in the Wind Center or visit our resources online. And be sure to enjoy the rest of your time here at the Minnesota State Fair. And remember, wind is a bright idea.